The ship broke apart in the sky like a burning bird. Monroe watched from the observation window as flames ate through the hull. Solar radiation from the unexpected storm had fried their systems one by one. Now there was nothing left to do but fall. The crash landing tore through the canyon walls with violent force. Metal screamed, people screamed. The world became chaos and pain. When the noise stopped, lay against a twisted piece of metal, tasting blood and smoke. Around her, 5 other crew members moved slowly, checking their bodies for injuries. Nobody was dead, that was something. Pulled herself up and looked at what remained of the research vessel. It was now just a broken shell of metal and electronics scattered across red sand. Their rescue signal had been activated, but the help would not come for at least 3 weeks. 3 weeks on a planet that every space agency in known space had declared a death zone. 3 weeks on. The Council had named a restricted world for one simple reason. These creatures were the nightmare that scientists used as an example when teaching students about apex predators. They grew to 30 meters long. Their bodies could withstand extreme heat and cold. They had teeth that could tear through reinforced metal, and there were many of them on this planet. His team consisted of herself, 2 junior biologists named, and a survival expert named Henry, a medical officer called, and an engineer named Jack. Each one looked at the broken ship and then at the endless desert beyond. Nobody spoke. They all knew what the experts said about human survival on. The experts said 0%. The experts said humans would be dead within days. Did not care what the experts said. "We move now," she told her team. Her voice was steady. "We need shelter before the sun sets. We need water. We need food. Henry, you search for caves or rock formations that could protect us. Take and gather anything useful from the ship that we can carry. Jack, help me check the survival supplies." The team moved without argument, had done this kind of work before. She had led expeditions to the ocean floor, to high mountains, to frozen tundras. She knew that panic killed people faster than hunger or cold. Keep them working, keep them focused, keep them alive. The sun was setting when they found the cave system. Henry had done good work. The caves went deep into the red rock, offering natural protection and temperature regulation. The team moved supplies inside as darkness fell. Outside, strange sounds echoed across the desert. Long, low sounds, hungry sounds. Did not sleep that night. She sat near the cave entrance and thought about their situation. 3 weeks without rescue contact meant they had to find food immediately. The ship's emergency rations would last maybe 4 days if they shared carefully. After that, they would need to eat what the planet offered. The planet was supposed to kill them. The scientists had said so. The Council had said so. But had learned a long time ago that what experts said and what was actually true were often 2 different things. On the morning of the 2nd day, came running to with news. He had found something beyond the ridge in a deep ravine, something large, something dead. Followed across the rock and sand. The sun was hot and unforgiving. Her water supply was already running low. But she pushed forward, curious, desperate, alive in a way that only dangerous situations could make a person feel. The lay in the ravine like a fallen mountain. It was massive. Even dead and already decomposing, it dominated the landscape. Its scales were dark red with streaks of black. Each scale was the size of a human hand. The creature's jaw hung open, revealing teeth that were long as a person's arm. But what mattered most to was not how terrifying the creature was. What mattered was that it was already dead. Something had killed this and left it. Approached carefully, she could see deep claw marks across the creature's body. Another had done this, had fought and killed this one, then probably left to hunt elsewhere. This corpse was a gift, a resource, a chance to survive. "We can use this," said to herself. Looked uncertain. "That thing, we cannot eat something like that. It is too big, it is too dangerous, it might carry diseases." Was already pulling her knife from her belt. "The meat is fresh, the flesh is protein, the fat can be used for fuel, the skin can provide material for protection. We are not going to waste this." She made the first cut. The blade sank deep into the thick muscle of this leg. Blood came out, but it was already darkening, already cooling. The creature had been dead for several hours. That was good. That meant it was still safe to eat. "We need fire," said, "and we need to work fast. By tomorrow the smell will bring other predators. We have maybe until sunset." Henry arrived with and Jack. When they understood what was doing, some of them looked afraid, some looked disgusted, but all of them understood. They had no choice. The planet did not care about their feelings. They worked through the day, cut the meat into manageable pieces. Henry built a fire using wood and dried plants they had gathered. Jack created simple tools from metal scraps and carried meat and prepared it for cooking. The smell of cooking meat filled the canyon. It was rich and strange, nothing like any meat had ever prepared before. But it smelled like food, it smelled like survival. As the sun fell toward the horizon, the team sat around the fire and ate. The meat was tough and required serious chewing, but it was warm and filling. Watched her people eat and saw something change in their eyes. They had done something that the experts said was impossible. They had taken the most dangerous creature on this world and used it for life instead of death. "We are going to survive," said quietly. She was not making a prediction. Commander watched the data streams with a level of attention that made her processor units work at maximum efficiency. In her crystalline form, she could absorb and analyze information at speeds that biological species could never match. But the information she was receiving from was creating contradictions that made her pause and recalculate. The human called Monroe had now been alive on for 9 days. 9 days was longer than any prediction model suggested. Every biological simulation created by the Council had indicated that humans would perish within 3 days. Exposure, starvation, or predation was supposed to end the humans quickly and quietly. Instead, the humans had done something that changed understanding of her assignment. They had begun to thrive. From her orbital station, monitored temperature readings, movement patterns, and the humans' gathering of resources. The data told a clear story. Monroe had organized her people into efficient teams. She had identified a sustainable food source by using the dead corpse. She had established a camp location that offered natural defenses and access to water. Most importantly, she had created a system for survival that showed clear evidence of strategic thinking. This was not luck. This was not accident. This was intelligence applied with discipline and confidence. Had studied human biology for years. She knew their physical limitations. Humans had no exoskeletons. They generated heat inefficiently. They could not survive extreme cold or heat that other species endured without issue. They had short compared to the or their species. By every measure of physical capability, humans should be classified as a fragile, vulnerable species suited only for protected environments. But something was wrong with that classification. Something did not align with the data was collecting. Monroe was making decisions that required understanding of animal behavior, nutrition, tool creation, and tactical positioning. She was doing this on a planet where every known resource was dangerous or toxic. She was doing this with limited equipment and in constant fear of predatory attack. Decided to send a communication to her superior, Elder Tarn. This was unusual. Monitoring stations were supposed to report at scheduled intervals, not interrupt the Elder's schedule with preliminary data, but felt that this situation required immediate attention. The message was encrypted and sent through secure channels. Waited for the response. On below, she continued to watch and her team work through the night, preparing additional meat and creating smoking racks to preserve the flesh for future meals. 3 hours later, Elder Tarn's response arrived. His tone was sharp and dismissive. Tarn was an older being who had served on the council for 200 cycles. He had strong opinions about human capability, and those opinions were not favorable. "Continue observation," his message stated. "The humans will fail eventually. All biological species fail in isolation on. You are detecting temporary survival tactics, not true adaptation. Do not contaminate your report with unsupported speculation. Monitor, record, remain silent." But could not remain silent inside her own processing centers. She continued to watch and saw something that made her reconsider Elder Tarn's words. Was teaching. On the 10th day, the human had gathered her entire team around a cooking fire. She was showing them how to identify different types of plants, which ones were safe to eat, and which ones would cause death or illness. She was teaching them about the patterns of behavior, explaining that the creatures hunted at specific times and returned to specific areas. She was creating knowledge that her people could use to survive beyond the initial crash crisis. This was not temporary survival. This was building a foundation for extended existence. Made additional notes. She collected more data. She documented temperature changes, predator activity, human decision-making patterns. The more she observed, the more she realized that the Council's assessment of humanity had been incomplete. Humans were not physically powerful. Humans were not biologically superior, but humans possessed something that the Council had underestimated. Humans had adaptability at a level that seemed almost biological in nature. They could solve problems that were new to them. They could learn quickly. They could work together toward goals that required cooperation and trust. These traits might be more valuable on a hostile world than pure strength. On the evening of the 12th day, detected something critical. A second had been spotted moving toward the human settlement location. This was not surprising. The smell of cooked meat and blood would draw predators across vast distances. What was significant was response. She did not panic. She did not try to run or hide. Instead, she ordered her team to move their supplies deeper into the cave. She had them prepare fire barriers and create high ground for throwing stones and metal fragments. She was preparing a defense position. Watch the approach. On her screens, she could see the creature's massive shape moving across the desert. It was a male, judging by the ridge patterns on its back. It was fully healthy and hungry. By every objective measure, a human armed with primitive tools and fire should not be able to stand against such a creature. Waited for the battle that was about to come. Monroe stood at the mouth of her cave and saw the emerge from behind the red rocks. The creature was even larger than the one they had hunted. It was alive. It was hungry. It was coming directly toward them. She had expected this. She had prepared for this. Now she would learn if her preparation was enough. Recorded everything. She captured the moment when threw burning branches at the creature. She recorded the sounds that's team made, using noise and shouting to disorient the predator. She watched as the humans worked together with a level of coordination that seemed almost choreographed, each person moving to a predetermined position to attack, defend, or distract. The battle was brief but intense. They tried to break through the human defenses with direct assault, but the fire and noise confused it. The humans were small and fast, harder to catch than other prey. The creature had been hurt many times before by other. Fighting something new and unexpected was not what it wanted. After several minutes of frustrated attack, the roared in anger and pain. It turned away from the cave. It limped into the desert, searching for easier prey elsewhere. Fell to the ground and breathed hard. Her team gathered around her, checking for injuries. One of the humans called had been struck by the creature's tail and had a deep cut across his shoulder. The medical officer began treating the wound immediately. But they were alive. They had faced one of its apex predators and survived. Felt something unfamiliar in her crystalline structure. It was not emotion exactly. They did not experience emotion the way biological species did, but it was something close to recognition, something close to respect. She began to record a new message to Elder Tarn. This message would be different from the last one. This message would contain information that could not be dismissed as temporary survival tactics. The humans have achieved direct combat victory against an adult, wrote. This encounter confirms that human adaptability, tactical thinking, and group coordination can overcome physical disadvantages. The Council's assessment of human capability requires immediate revision. She paused before sending the message. She knew that this report would create conflict within the Council. Somme III was different from the second one. It was older, across its massive body from countless battles. It was larger than either of the creatures they had encountered before, and it was hunting with purpose that suggested intelligence. Noticed this immediately. She had been watching the patterns for 2 weeks now. She understood that these creatures had hierarchies and territories. They had behaviors that could be predicted if you paid close attention. This one was not like the hungry young male that had attacked their cave. This one was a territorial creature, defending its domain against intruders. They had killed and butchered 2 corpses in this territory. They had created smoke and fire and made noise that would be heard for kilometers. By the logic of predatory behavior, they had declared themselves a threat to the dominant creature of this region. The old had come to remove them. Was working near the cave entrance when she first saw it. The creature appeared on a ridge almost a kilometer away. It was so distant that it looked like a small lizard, but the experienced eye recognized the shape and movement pattern immediately. She sounded the warning whistle that the team had agreed upon. Everyone responded instantly. This was not their first predator encounter. Henry began moving the food supplies and water containers deeper into the cave, and checked the fire barriers they had constructed and reinforced them with additional wood. Jack prepared rocks and metal fragments, placing them in strategic locations where they could be thrown quickly, gathered the medical supplies, and moved them to the furthest point of the cave system. And this had met before, though neither of them knew it. 1 week earlier, a young had attacked their camp. The young male had fled after a brief engagement, had tracked the creature into a canyon and discovered something important. The creature had other scars. Some of those scars matched wounds that could only have come from another. The old predator had beaten this young male in combat. This was its territory. Now the old one was coming to meet the invaders directly. Positioned herself at the cave entrance, visible to the approaching creature. She held a burning branch in each hand. She wanted it to see her. She wanted it to know that the humans were here and aware of its presence. She had learned that responded to threats differently than Earth animals. These creatures respected confidence and boldness. They were less likely to attack something that stood and faced them than something that ran or hid. The old moved with a speed that surprised anyone who underestimated the power of such a massive creature. It covered the distance to the cave in minutes, its claws tearing through the red sand, its massive jaw swinging side to side as it approached. Did not move. She held her ground and raised the burning branches higher. Behind her, inside the cave, the team prepared for what was about to happen. The creature slowed as it approached the cave entrance. It was testing the defenses. It wanted to understand what had killed and consumed two of its kind and stolen resources from its territory. It opened its mouth, and a sound emerged that was not quite a roar and not quite a scream. It was the sound of a predator announcing its dominance. Threw the first burning branch directly at the creature's face. The branch struck the sensitive tissue around its eye, and the shrieked in pain and anger. This was not a small creature that would run away after a minor injury. This was a major predator that had no experience with prey that fought back. It did what all apex predators do when challenged. It attacked. The creature's massive claws raked across the rock at the cave entrance. Stones the size of a human head were dislodged and fell. It pushed its head into the cave opening, trying to reach. The space was too confined. Its shoulders were too wide. The cave narrowed quickly, and the creature could not force its way fully inside. Ran deeper into the cave. This was part of the plan. Henry was waiting with a large piece of burning wood. As they tried to follow into the cave, Henry thrust the flame directly into the creature's face. The heat and light caused the predator to retreat, shaking its head and roaring with frustration. But the creature did not leave. It remained at the cave entrance, blocking the only exit. Its head was stuck partially inside the opening, and it was using its massive strength to widen the space, pushing against the cave walls with its shoulder and snout. The rock around the entrance began to crack and crumble. This was becoming a serious problem. If they widened the entrance enough, it would be able to squeeze its body inside. The humans would be trapped with an enraged apex predator in a confined space where they could not run and could not use fire effectively. Assess the situation with the kind of thinking that had kept her alive this long. The cave ceiling near the entrance had cracks running through it. These cracks had been there since before the humans arrived. This pushing against the walls had made them worse. Jack shouted, "The western wall supports cut them now." Jack understood immediately. He was an engineer. He could see what was thinking. He had a cutting tool made from salvaged metal, sharp enough to damage stone when used correctly. He began hacking at the rocks that formed the main support for the cave ceiling above the entrance. Then, noticing the increased activity inside the cave, pushed harder. It was determined to widen the entrance further. The effort caused more cracks to appear in the ceiling. The instability was becoming critical. One of the support stones fell, then another. Dust filled the air. The finally realizing that the cave was becoming unstable, pulled its head back out of the entrance. That was the moment the ceiling collapsed. Stone and rock came down in a cascade that sealed the cave entrance completely. It was not a controlled collapse. It was violent and chaotic. A large piece of stone struck the shoulder, causing it to roar in pain and fury. The creature moved away from the cave, putting distance between itself and the falling rocks. When the dust settled, the cave entrance was no longer accessible. The stones completely blocked the way in or out, but they also blocked the from entering. The predator, now injured in multiple places and frustrated by an encounter unlike anything it had experienced before, turned away from the cave. It would seek easier prey elsewhere. Inside the cave, dust filled the air so thickly that the humans could barely see each other. They coughed and struggled to breathe, was injured from a falling stone that had struck his leg. Jack had a cut across his forehead from a piece of sharp rock, but no one was dead, no one was dying. They were alive, and they were sealed in a cave with limited air and no visible exit. Did not panic. Instead, she gathered everyone away from the dust cloud and had them sit near the center of the cave where the air was clearest. She told Henry to check if the fresh water source that ran through the cave's deepest chamber was still accessible. She told to inventory their food supplies. She told to prepare medicines for the injuries. And she began to examine the cave walls, looking for alternative exits. The cave system was large. It extended back into the earth for hundreds of meters. There had to be other ways out. There had to be passages that the humans had not yet explored. Humans were good at finding solutions to problems reports spread through the council like radiation through a nuclear reaction. Within 3 days, every monitoring station on was focusing its sensors on the human settlement. Within 5 days, the council had called a full assembly session to discuss the implications of what the humans were doing. The evidence was undeniable. 6 humans had crashed on. 4 weeks had passed. Instead of being dead, the humans had killed 3 apex predators, established a sustainable food source, created shelter, and survived 2 direct combat engagements with the planet's most dangerous creatures. More significantly, they had demonstrated learning and adaptation at a speed that had shocked every analyst in the Council's database. The political consequences were immediate and serious. Commander of the species stood before the Council and demanded answers. They were a warrior culture who had built their entire civilization on the principle of physical dominance. They saw humans as competition now, and competition was something they addressed directly. "These humans are a threat to stability," said, his voice like grinding stone. "The Council established restrictions on precisely to maintain our control of the planet's resources. Now humans have proven they can exploit those resources without our permission. They have proven they can survive without our assistance. They are demonstrating capability that challenges the entire framework of the Council's governance." Elder Tarn, who had earlier dismissed observations, now found himself in a difficult position. He could not deny the data. He could not argue against what thousands of monitoring sensors had recorded. The humans had done the impossible, and now the Council had to decide what to do about it. A faction within the Council wanted immediate military intervention. They wanted to send ships to eliminate the human settlement before the humans became any more entrenched on. This group was led by Commander and supported by several other warrior-class species. Their argument was simple. Humans were uncontrolled variables. Humans had proven unpredictable and capable of threatening the established order. Therefore, humans had to be eliminated. Another faction, smaller but growing more vocal, argued for recognition and negotiation. This group included and several younger members of the Council. They pointed out that the humans had not attacked the Council. They had not demonstrated hostile intent toward any galactic power. They had simply done what humans do. They had survived. And survival on, when all models said it was impossible, demonstrated qualities that might be valuable. "We can destroy them," said Councillor Sheeing, representing the negotiation faction. "But what would we destroy? We would eliminate a species that has proven it can thrive in environments that we consider unsuitable for any biological life. We would lose the opportunity to study human adaptation. We would lose potential allies in exploration of truly hostile worlds. And we would create the foundation for future conflict with a species that we have just proven can survive in the harshest conditions we can create." The debate raged for 3 days. Ships were put on standby. Military commanders were consulted. Scientists presented evidence and counter-evidence. Through it all, Monroe and her team continued their work on, unaware that their survival had triggered the largest political crisis in the Council's recent history. On the 4th day, made a critical decision. She sent a private communication to Elder Tarn. In this communication, she did something that was technically a violation of her official duties. She included personal observation and personal judgment, not just raw data. "The humans represent an opportunity," wrote, "and opportunities are rare in our Council's history. We can choose fear and we can choose destruction, or we can choose understanding. I have observed Dr. Monroe for the past month. She is an intelligent being. She is resourceful. She is capable of making difficult decisions. She is also something that is important. She is diplomatic. She has kept her team together. She has made decisions that benefit the group, not just herself. This is not a mindless, aggressive species. This is a species that thinks and cooperates and adapts. If we eliminate them now, we lose not an enemy but a potential friend." Elder Tarn read this communication 3 times, was breaking protocol, was offering judgment where she should have only offered data. But what was saying made sense. The old being had been alive for 200 cycles. He had seen other situations where fear had driven the council to make decisions that they later regretted. He called for a vote. The military intervention faction lost. Not by a large margin, but they lost. The council decided that humans would be allowed to continue their exploration and settlement of. More significantly, they decided to establish formal contact. They would send an official delegation to meet with Monroe and her team. They would attempt diplomacy. The vote was close enough that everyone understood the stakes. This decision might be right, it might be wrong, but it was committed now. Did not know about any of this. She was focused on immediate survival and understanding's ecosystem. She had moved her team to a new location, a valley with fresh water and access to multiple cave systems that offered safety. She had created a systematic approach to hunting and preservation. She had begun the work of cataloging plants and animals. What she did know was that rescue was now coming. She received the communication on her emergency beacon. Help was on the way, not just basic rescue, but official representatives from the council. Her team celebrated this news with controlled happiness. They had survived. They had proven that humans could live on a restricted world. Now they would have support to thrive. But wondered about something as she looked at the message details. The message was polite. It was respectful. It used language that suggested equality, not superiority. Something had changed in how the galaxy viewed humanity. Something in the last weeks of survival had shifted the way others saw humans. She did not know about the debate in the council. She did not know about the military forces that had almost been sent to kill her. She did not know that survival itself had been a political act, that every meal she prepared and every predator she faced had been watched by the ship descended through atmosphere like a silver bird landing in an alien world. Watched it approach from her settlement, and she felt something unexpected. She felt nervous. For the past month, she had focused on immediate challenges, on survival, on the present moment. Now she was about to meet representatives from the civilization that had declared her world off-limits. Representatives who had presumably come to judge whether humans belonged on. The landing was careful and controlled. Had cleared a flat area for exactly this purpose 3 days ago, calculating that rescue would come eventually. She had prepared remarks in her mind. She had considered what she would say to these beings that humanity had never formally negotiated with before. The ship's entrance hatch opened. The first being to emerge was not what expected. She had studied alien physiology as part of her scientific training, but seeing it in person was entirely different. The creature was like living crystal, roughly humanoid in shape, but with surfaces that caught light and refracted it into rainbows. The being moved with a fluid grace that made understand why they were known as one of the most advanced civilizations in known space. This being was Commander. "Dr. Monroe," said, her voice like wind through hollow glass. "I am Commander of the Council. I have been observing your activities on this world for the past month. I have recommended to the Council that we offer you official recognition as a species capable of surviving on restricted worlds. The Council has voted to accept this recommendation." Felt something in her chest shift. Recognition. That single word meant everything. It meant that the impossible had become the possible. It meant that her struggle had not been for nothing. "Thank you," said. "I represent humanity. I speak for my team. We are grateful for the Council's recognition. But we are also here because we chose to be here. We chose to survive. We chose to adapt. I want the Council to understand something, Commander. You did not give us permission to live. We earned it. We took what your scientists said was impossible and made it real." There was a moment of silence, wondered if she had made a mistake. She had been respectful, but she had also been firm. She had not asked permission. She had asserted human capability. Moved closer, the commander tilted what might have been her head. "You are correct," said. "The data confirms this. Your species did not ask for permission. You asked only to survive, and you did. This is why I came personally to this world, not to grant you survival, but to understand how you achieved it." The conversation continued for hours, brought to the settlement. She showed her the techniques that had been developed for processing meat. She explained the systematic approach to understanding's ecosystem. She introduced her team and spoke with each of them, asking questions about their decisions and their reasoning. But what struck most was something that she had detected in her monitoring, but had not fully understood until meeting in person. Humans had something that most advanced species had lost. Humans had hope without certainty. Humans could pursue goals without knowing if success was possible. Humans could see a hostile world and choose to stay rather than run. "Your species has a unique combination of traits," said to as they stood looking out at the landscape. "You are intelligent, yes, but you are also adaptable in ways that go beyond problem solving. You are adaptable in your emotion, in your perspective, in your willingness to accept failure and continue trying. This is not something we see often in the advanced civilizations." "On Earth we call it stubbornness," said with a slight smile. "Perhaps," replied, "but it is stubbornness in service to a goal, stubbornness that benefits others, not just yourself. That is different. That is valuable." The Council made a formal announcement 2 days later. Humanity was being granted status as a compatible species. The restrictions on human exploration and settlement of restricted worlds would be lifted immediately. Humans would have access to the same scientific resources and research opportunities as any other advanced civilization. Most importantly, humans would have the opportunity to expand beyond their limited system and explore the galaxy. The announcement caused significant reaction across known space. Some species were angry. They felt threatened by the sudden elevation of humanity. Some were skeptical, believing that this was a temporary arrangement that would end in disaster. But others were intrigued. They wanted to learn what made humans capable of doing what everyone had believed was impossible. Chose to remain on, but not as a survivor. She remained as the head of a human research station. More humans came with better equipment and more resources. They established a permanent settlement. They began serious scientific study of ecosystem. They hunted and farmed and explored with methods that integrated human ingenuity with alien technology. And found an unexpected friend in Commander. They came regularly to the research station. She and would walk through the valleys and canyons of, discussing science and strategy and philosophy. Was fascinated by the human capacity to find beauty in a hostile world. Was fascinated by the ability to accept when she was wrong and to learn from species that she had previously dismissed. "My people feared you," told one evening as they watched a hunt in the distance. "We feared that humanity represented an unknown variable that could disrupt our civilization. We feared that we could not control you, so we declared worlds that you might survive on to be forbidden." "Fear is a common response to the unknown," replied. "Humans have done the same thing to each other but we learn, we grow. We find that the things we fear are not always the threats we believe them to be." "Yes," agreed. "And sometimes the things we fear become the things we value most. I came to this world expecting to observe the failure of a species. Instead, I observed the emergence of something new. I observed the birth of human potential in the larger galaxy." The two beings stood in silence as the sun set over. Below them, the planet turned dark. Above them, the stars emerged. And somewhere in that vast expanse of space, other humans were beginning their own journeys. Other humans were looking at worlds that others had declared impossible and choosing to go there anyway. Monroe had proven something essential. She had proven that humans did not need permission to survive. They did not need acceptance to thrive. They did not need certainty to succeed. They simply needed the willingness to keep trying. The Council had sent its representatives to study human failure. Instead, they had witnessed human success. And that single success had changed everything. In the sky above, rescue ships arrived regularly. But they did not come to rescue. They came to deliver supplies, equipment, and more humans. They came to support humanity's expansion into territories that science had declared forbidden. They came to participate in something new that was being built on a world of red sand and dangerous predators. And Dr. Monroe stood at the center of it all, no longer a survivor struggling against impossible odds. She was a pioneer. She was a visionary. She was the first human to teach the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength was not physical or technological. It was the simple refusal to accept that something was impossible just because no one had done it before. 1 month after the Council's official announcement, a new ship arrived carrying important cargo, refugees from across human space. Scientists, engineers, artists, and ordinary people who had heard the story of Monroe on and wanted to be part of what was happening here. Watched them disembark and felt a profound sense of responsibility. These people had come because she had survived. They believed in a future on because she had made it real. This was not something she took lightly. But as she looked at their faces, at their determination and hope, she knew something with certainty. Humanity was going to be fine, more than fine. Humanity was going to be remarkable. The story of Monroe On was not the end of human expansion. It was the beginning. Entities light years away, and that her adaptability had changed how an entire civilization understood what humans could do. In the canyon near her settlement, a called out in the distance. The creature was not hunting. It was simply claiming its territory, heard the sound and understood it now. She understood that creatures with intelligence respected other creatures with intelligence. She understood that survival was not about being the strongest. It was about being the most willing to keep trying when others would give up. She walked to the edge of the settlement and looked out at the landscape. Somewhere in the sky above her, beings were deciding whether humanity deserved a place in their civilization, but did not need their permission. She had already proven that humans belonged on. All that was left now was to show them what humans could build here. The sun set over the red desert. The sky turned colors that did not exist on Earth, stood in that alien beauty, and understood that her life had changed in ways that the other members of her species would not understand for years to come. She was the first human to survive on a, the first human to prove that fear and limitation were things that could be overcome with intelligence and determination. The first human to change how the galaxy understood what humans could do. They were good at survival. This situation was not the end, it was just another challenge. Above in orbit, monitored the seismic data from the cave collapse. The sensors registered the falling stones, the crash of the retreating, and then a period of silence. Waited for the next data signal from the human settlement. It took 6 hours, but eventually the signal came. The humans had found another exit. They had somehow escaped the sealed cave and moved their camp to a new location. Not all of them were in perfect condition. The medical signals indicated injuries, but they were alive. Processed this information with growing certainty. The humans were not going to die on. They were not going to fail. They were going to adapt to this world and find a way to thrive. And that meant everything the Council had believed about humanity needed to change. Members would resist the information. Some would feel threatened by it, but was a scientist. She reported what she observed, and what she observed was that humanity was far more capable than anyone had believed. The message was sent. Below On sat with her team and told them that rescue was coming, but she also told them something else. "We do not need rescue," she said. "We need a research station, we need more equipment, we need to understand this world properly, because it is not a death sentence. It is an opportunity, and I intend to see what humanity can achieve here." Watched and listened to every word. She did not yet understand what the full implications of this moment would be, but she was certain that the galaxy was about to change. Adding a fact. In the sky above, in an orbital station that's team did not know existed, a being made of crystalline silicon watched everything through sensors and cameras. Commander of the Council had been assigned to monitor the human crash survivors. Her role was to observe and document the humans' inevitable failure and death. But what was watching made no sense. The humans were not dying. The humans were hunting. The humans were eating meat from one of apex predators. The humans were acting as if the most dangerous world in known space was simply a puzzle to solve. Did not know what to make of this. She had been told humans were weak. She had been told humans could not survive in extreme environments. But there was Dr. Monroe, butchering with the calm certainty of someone who had done this kind of thing 1,000 times before. Made a note in her report, then she continued watching. She could not explain what she was seeing, but she was certain that everything the Council believed about humans was about to change.